Hello, everybody. My name is Jordan with a silent PH in the middle, and this is the Saturday Morning D&D Show. Welcome to episode 100. It is fantastic. I am so excited. And I am joined, as always, by my wonderful co-host, Sir Lucian, over at Sir Lucian Gaming. Say hello, sir.
Hello, everybody. Adjust your volumes as I fixed my mic from last week, and hopefully I'm much louder for you guys. So hopefully it's working out.
And I'm awake, and I'm here.
Yay.
So I didn't sleep in. I didn't sleep in for our 100th episode. That's so exciting. We have a giveaway, which we will talk about prizes and things like that. But if you want to enter now because you're too excited, there is a link in the YouTube description, and we will put the link in the Twitch description or Twitch chat at some point. And that would be awesome. And we would love to have you guys enter a lot of really cool prizes. So we're going to go a little longer too with this show. We're going to talk about the news and games and things like that. And then we have a bunch of questions that you guys asked us, and we're going to answer them to the best of our abilities. We'll also be taking questions from chat here and there. So feel free to, I guess if you have a question, maybe bracket it with like the word question so we can skim through and find it. That would be awesome. But not just yet. We're gonna talk about the news first. Lucian, what is happening in the world of Dungeons and Dragons?
Well, it was kind of a slow news week last week. We didn't know actually what we got. And
Ridiculous.
Funny enough, we were talking about this last Saturday, and then Sunday we got the first little leak, I would say. We saw the leak. I think it was Sunday evening-ish, and then Monday morning we waited around, and it was confirmed for Explorer's Guide to Wildmount.
Wow.
That campaign setting that you were hoping and waiting for, Jordan. I know.
Not in the slightest. Yeah. It was weird. This came out of left field for me. And then I thought about it, and I was like, no, this actually makes perfect sense, because Critical Role is they have so much statistics, I'm sure, Wizards of the Coast, and they probably look at it and they're like, we're getting more D&D players because of Critical Role than any other like streaming thing ever. But when you go to Reddit, there were even Critical Role fans that were like, this isn't the book that I wanted. Like, why? I was hoping for another Xanathars or something. Like, I don't know. And if you're like me, a lot of people felt that it didn't feel D&D-ish because it wasn't like a classic setting. But then it got me thinking about things like Eberron. Eberron wasn't a classic setting when it came out in 3rd edition. It was a brand new setting. And so why can't we have a brand new setting for 5th edition as well? I don't know. I'm not the biggest Critical Role fan, but I watched a couple of the videos with Matt Mercer. I know, shocking.
Hot take.
I watched a couple of the videos with Matt Mercer, and I like him a lot. Like, I think they're all really great people. And he wrote a really great letter on Reddit, on the D&D subreddit, that was just like, hey, I know that a lot of you guys this isn't the book you wanted, but we're doing this and it's really cool. And I'm paraphrasing it really poorly. But in the end, he said, if this book isn't for you, you don't have to buy it. But I do hope that if we ever meet each other at a convention, we can swap stories, show off dice, roll some characters, and have a good time, kind of a thing. And so it is just like, this is my baby, but it's not for everyone. And that's okay. It doesn't have to be for everyone. But with this book, they're going to have factions of Wildmount, which is the name of the region, or is it the world or the region? I'm not sure.
It's got to be the region, because I bought the other book they put out, which was the Tal'Dorei book, which I thought was the name of the overall world.
No, and that was a continent or something, because I was explained by a Critical Role fan that this is a separate continent. So
Got it.
Because that campaign 2 is on the same planet, but a different continent. But they're going to get new subclasses, new spells, new magic items, including weapons that grow with your player, which I know a lot of people want, because you have your level 1 fighter, and he's like, I've got my father's sword that blah, blah, blah. And then you find like a +1 magic item, and you're like, so long, father's sword. I've got this better sword now. So the idea that you could start with an item that grows with you is kind of cool. Everybody wants new monsters, so why not?
Yeah.
And this made me think a lot of Ravnica. Ravnica was a book that came out that I was like, nobody asked for this, Wizards of the Coast. Why are you doing this? Nobody wants this. And then it turned out to be really cool. And there are a lot of people that are running Ravnica games. I know Indoors channel, I think he's doing a Ravnica game on Mondays. No, Tuesdays. Indoor, you can correct me in chat, but you are running some kind of Ravnica game, and it's very exciting. So, people are playing that, and the subclasses and stuff were fun, and things like the Spore Druid that were in Ravnica, you could easily take and put into your campaign, because a Spore Druid is not essentially Ravnica, and I think these other subclasses are going to be the same way. Like the subclass in Explorer's Guide to Wildmount is it's not going to be like so tethered to that campaign setting that I can't take it and put it in Forgotten Realms or something else. So what are we smirking at? What everyone's laughing?
The chat.
What's happening?
We're interacting with chat. Yeah, this actually was one of those things that had like that roller coaster for me also, because when it dropped, I thought, I like Critical Role, but I didn't like Critical Role enough that I want to run a campaign in their world. And I started trying to analyze, why is that? Why do I want to run a campaign in Greyhawk? Why does that interest me? Why do I want to run a campaign in Forgotten Realms? I don't really want to run a campaign in Eberron. I would play in it. I think it's fine. And I think it's great what he's doing. And I love that it's out there, but I don't know if I want to run a campaign in it. And then I was thinking, I don't know if I want to run a campaign, because I already have the other book, and that one was okay-ish, but it didn't grab me as much as reading all the other campaign settings that are out there, or like a Dark Sun or a Spelljammer or something just crazy out there. But then it made me think that, well, how do these things, like you just said, become classics? And it becomes people playing it. And we had an AC Inc. book, which is basically kind of an AC Inc. campaign world. They do use Forgotten Realms, but it is an AC Inc. style game.
It's their own thing. And
we've got a Rick and Morty style game. We've got Eberron style games. We've got Ravnica style games. So we are getting a lot of these different worlds getting pulled in. So it was interesting. I did find it kind of off-putting that so many people were trying to get ahead of the rage. That was the internet rage. They were just like, if this wasn't a book you wanted, just be the type of person that says, okay, I'll just buy the next book, and we don't need to hear that you don't like this book or whatever. And I think it's interesting that I saw more of that than I even saw with the Ravnica book, which was people saying, we don't need magic in our Dungeons and Dragons. But in reality, there was a bunch of us that really wanted that. I mean, that world of Magic the Gathering is so cool. I've always wanted to be able to play campaigns in that world. They just released Theros this past week, and I want a campaign book for that. I want a campaign book for all this stuff they do, because it's such a vibrant world. And I think that's what grabs me. I think it's these vibrant worlds that grab me. So what I came up with is, why was I resistant to this Wildmount book? Like, it's not one that I'm too into. And I think it's because I watch Critical Role and I know it's Matt Mercer's world, and I don't feel like I can make that my world.
Oh,
right?
That's a good point. Yeah.
So it's his world to me. Like, I never got to see Keith Baker run his game. So if I do Eberron, it doesn't feel like it's Keith's world. It just feels like it's Eberron. It's anybody who's running its world. If I run a Forgotten Realms, it's anybody who's running it.
Yeah, because Keith wasn't running Eberron streaming for like 5 years before making it into a book. And people liked the world of Eberron, but it never got that sensation of like, but that's Keith's. And that's kind of how, you're right, that's how this feels, because and actually, that, now that you say that out loud, I think that's exactly it. I don't feel like, it almost doesn't feel right for me to run a Matt Mercer world book.
I don't feel like I can do it great.
It's not mine. He made this. I could make my own.
I can't do it justice.
But Forgotten Realms, it seems like, well, that's open for everybody. So, Eberron, that's open for everybody. I don't know, Dark Sun, etc.
Yeah, like, so Indoor Adventure and Cyberwar, those are all people that I would play with. LB Hack'em would all be people that played in my games. And if I went to them and I said, hey guys, I'm going to run this new Wildmount campaign, we're going to stream it online, they would be super excited. But then the pressure on me would be, I can't do it as good as Matt does that world, because he knows everything about his own world, and they're fans of that and they want that, but I can't do that. And what happens when I do something different than Matt would do? Like, I decide to kill off some main character that they're like, whoa, you can't do that.
You're like, but he's still alive in the show.
That's the highest druid person of this whoever. So I would have anxiety about, I'm not giving them the experience that they want in that campaign world, because I don't know if I can make it my campaign world.
Yeah.
With that. So that's where my resistance came from. Now it's probably a fault, I can obviously work around it. And I should remind myself that whenever you role play a game, the world is your world. You make it yours. The Ravnica I run a campaign is my Ravnica, and it would be different than Indoors Ravnica is going to be, would be different than Jordan's. If Jordan runs an Eberron and I run an Eberron, those are different worlds. They're going to run differently. Different things are going to happen. Maybe your trains are a little bit different than the way I want to do the train. I'm going to adjust them a little bit because I want to do something a little bit different or whatever. And I forget that, but it just felt like with the Wildmount book that I was leaning more towards, it's Matt's world. I can't play in Matt's world.
Yeah.
That's his toys. Those aren't my toys to play with.
I don't
but
know.
they definitely made the book huge.
Yeah, it's 300
They
pages.
definitely added stuff in it that made me sound like I wanted to find out about. They added character classes, like you said, the weapons information, and he did do a good job of saying there's pieces here that I hope you can pull out of this book and use in your campaigns, even if you don't want to run your campaign in Wildmount. And I think that's a good way to look at all books. All books should be released that way from Wizards of the Coast. They have pieces that you can pull out if you want to, and you can ignore what you don't. Mm-hmm. And if they don't have that, I don't think it's a good book. But I think this one will be a good book because of that. And so I'm one of those people that was like, it's not really the world I want. I don't mind that it's out there. And I wonder how many streams we're going to see of Wildmount streams, right? So we have lots of streams out there, people playing Dungeons and Dragons. We had some pop up when Eberron came out, so I started seeing a few here and there of Eberron streams popping up. I wonder how many we'll see of Wildmount popping up out there to see.
Was
and
there
maybe
a lot
I'll enjoy
of
those.
Tal'Dorei, like streams that started when that book came out?
I don't recall any streams. I ran one shot in it with our friends.
Okay.
And it seemed pretty fun, but it also felt, again, like I did feel like there was enough information in the campaign book. Mm-hmm. I felt like I needed more because it felt like it was this really realized world, but it was still a lot of it locked up in Matt's head, right? So he knows all the stuff, but he hasn't written all of it down yet, or he knows what all these things. And Keith's kind of been doing that too, where he puts out lots of posts about this is how the wood elves are, or this is how the halflings are. Even if that piece of information doesn't show up in the book, he's always putting out information about, well, this is how these things are. Yeah, he's got a blog
where he does say, like, let's talk about changelings. Like, well, and he'll be like, this is how I always interpreted changelings, but in actuality, or in the books, I didn't write, these books, and that's how changelings are canon wise. But like, if you want my opinion, and so a lot of people, and that's why we were talking canon with a K, because there's Keith Baker canon. So, and I wonder, I don't know, so I have two questions, or two things that I want to talk about. One is, are Critical Role fans the type of people that will allow Lucian to make Wildmount his game? Or are they going to be, and that's a generalization, I guess, but like, I know Critical Role fans are pretty diehard. And if I'm like,
would
hey
they ever
guys,
become...
I want to run a Critical Role game, and we all sit down at the table, and then they know more about the setting than I do. And I'm like, but I have the book, and so I'm going to do this. And they're like, well, you can't really, they wouldn't do that. And it's like, well, you're not Jester actually. So maybe we should like not play like that. I don't know.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Would they become Jordan fans running in Wildmount if they were Critical Role fans? Yeah. I don't know. I have no idea. I do know that the Critical Role crowd have had to defend themselves in some ways. It feels like over the last year or two, because a lot of things have come up and have tried to disparage the group that makes Critical Role. And all those people are fantastic.
They're really great. Yeah.
Superhumans that they do way more than I ever do, charity wise and helping people out and interacting with their community. They're great and wonderful people. And they've been attacked here and there. Like when they did the Wendy's tie-in, they got attacked. They're going to make a cartoon. They got attacked. There were segments of the internet coming at them because they're like, oh, you guys are big time now, or, oh, you're selling out, or, oh, you're working with this company that's obviously a terrible company and you shouldn't do that. And so they're used to now defending what Critical Role is doing. And I think that was what this was. But I felt like in no other book release did I see a bunch of stream or a bunch of tweets and a bunch of conversation about, hey guys, if this isn't the book for you, don't worry, there's more stuff coming out. Coming from Wizards of the Coast, coming from all of the Critical Role people, all of them putting that out there that Monday morning to try to tamp down anything that might, turn into some big wildfire. So it's almost like they knew this book was controversial. Like they kind of knew what they were getting themselves into. And I wonder what the process was. Sounds like he's been working on it for more than, I think the interview said he's been working on it for 2 years, right? Yeah. So this isn't something that just sprung out, which sometimes we all think of, oh, the book's out and they've only been working on it for the last couple of months. But that's not true with Wizards of the Coast. They're 2 or 3 years out on their thing. So this has been a long time in the making for this. And I just think it's an interesting thing. Are they going to do the live event based on this world? Yeah. Is that what the campaign's going to be and everything's going to tie into? Or is this going to be supported kind of like Eberron? Eberron's been supported for about a month. It released in November. It got some kind of marketing push in December from Wizards of the Coast. And now we're done. We're on to Wildmount and we're going to do that. So like, is that all we're going to get? Are we going to get a month of Wildmount and then the next thing we're going to talk about? Or are they going to push it harder? Or they didn't really even push the Act Inc. book that much, I don't think either. Or the Rick and Morty, they did a little bit, but they didn't really, there wasn't streams and live events and all that kind of stuff based on all those things. So I just wonder what their planning is and what their marketing is. Kind of feels weird to me.
Yeah.
What do you think on how it was presented? Or even the idea that Monday morning at 8 a.m. when I went to their website, there was no mention of Wildmount yet. And then as the day rolled on, one page on one tab would get switched, and then another page and another tab might reference it. And by the end of the day, it was like the main page had it as the main thing, and you finally could go to the products page and it was there. And it was like one person was slowly hitting a button every hour to change one thing on their website. It just seemed really odd. So that's the way you're going to roll out your big announcement for. And then they had no real big Wizards of the Coast announcement. Mm-hmm. They had some Twitter stuff out there and they said, hey, everybody go look at the Amazon page. But then that was it. So it seemed really odd to me, the whole, this is our big 2020 big push. Here's our first product of the year. And they barely put a lot of marketing effort into it. It seemed weird to me. I don't know what you thought.
On Matt and friends to do it because it was like, it's their baby. I don't know. My second question or topic I want to discuss is, how do you feel about back-to-back campaign settings? Like, that's a little weird too. Like, we just got Eberron and then we get a Wildmount. That's the next book. And I thought that was I just felt that was odd because we barely get to understand this new world and then you're throwing another one at us. But at the same time, is that wrong? Like, who cares? Like, there are people that are like, well, I'm not interested in Eberron, but I am interested in Wildmount, so I am excited for this. So I don't know. It was kind of, that was an odd one to me as well.
Yeah. Well, and are we going to get more, or is this it? Was this just the big commercial tie-in that they wanted to do, and now they're done with commercial tie-ins? Because what else is left commercial tie-in that they haven't tied into, I wonder, at this point? So I don't know. I find it interesting. It's just a very interesting release, and it feels to me like it's not their main release. Like, I feel like we're going to get another announcement in the next month.
Yeah, that's
the real, here's our real next book for whatever. Because we just got to, not even moving into the next item yet, but we just got another Unearthed Arcana right away at the top of at the top of 2020 already too, on top of all the Unearthed Arcanas we talked about. And none of these classes that are coming with the Wildmount book were in the UA, I don't think. Did we ever see Dunamancy? Did we ever see Echo Knight? Did we ever see...
not with those names. And we saw like psionics and stuff. And that's why I feel like this is Matt's baby. And so he's been playtesting this rather than Wizards of the Coast sending it out. We might get in the next month a playtest for Dunamancy and all that other stuff. But it seems kind of like that was tested in-house. But you're right. Yeah. We haven't seen an Unearthed Arcana for any of those concepts. So I don't know.
And I feel like this book is written and done, just not shipped and printed yet, right?
Oh,
so
probably.
I don't know if we'll get any like feedback on, or if we'll see play tests. Maybe we will, but I don't know if we will.
I wouldn't put money on a playtest for that. Yeah, I feel like they're doing it in-house or something, like just because of that. I don't know.
Yeah, and if anybody's wondering how or what information we're seeing, most of the information you can get on this came from D&D Beyond did several videos throughout the day on that Monday of the announcement. And they were really the big push of, here's what's coming. We're going to interview Matt, and he's going to talk about these different things. So he talks about some of the classes that are coming, subclasses. He talks about the new monster stuff. He talks about the items. He talks about some of the different types of magic that's going on. He talks about the 4 worlds. Now, the one thing I really like about that they did say, and it's marked in our notes here, they're going to give you 4 campaign starting points in 4 different regions of this place called Wildmount. Mm-hmm. So if you want to do one in the north, here's a setup for that. If you want to do one in the west, here's what that's like. If you want to do one in the east, here's what that's like. And here's one in the south. I kind of wish we had one like that for Forgotten Realms that said, okay, you want to do your campaign, you want to do Sword Coast, here's your setup. You want to do, Sea of Fallen Stars, here's your setup. You want to do the Moonshae Isles, here's your setup. You want to do whatever.
That's the campaign book for 5th edition that all the Forgotten Realms people really want. Like Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide was fine, but it's not the campaign setting book people wanted for Forgotten Realms. Yeah.
So I'm interested to see that. I'm hoping that when we read it, it reads like the books that I've really enjoyed reading. Ravnica, I loved reading through it. The way they put that together and the way the stories in it, the way they pull you into the world was awesome. The other one that did it really well was Secrets of Saltmarsh. That one really grabbed me. So I hope that's the style that we see this book in, because if it is, then all my fears or all my hesitation will go away, because as I'm reading it, I'll get into it and I'll be like, okay, now I want to run it. Now I understand it.
And Matt Mercer's a charismatic guy. And I was just thinking, like, I really liked Matt Colville's Strongholds and Followers because it was in his voice. And it was just kind of fun to read. Like, you read it and it felt like Matt was talking to you about this cool thing he was excited about. And if this book comes across like that, like if Matt Mercer is talking to me and he's really excited about all of this, I could see myself really enjoying it as well. So
right. Yeah. And somebody said also, we've just seen a release that there's supposed to be a DC Universe setting coming for 5e that we've heard about.
Really?
And there's definitely plenty of other third-party groups.
Everybody can be Batman?
I'm guessing, doing 5e. I know Monty Cook said they're doing their book. He's bringing Ptolus back, Ptoulus, which was his big Super City campaign that he did back when he was at Wizards of the Coast. And so they're going to do that as a redone 5th edition and for a Numenera or Cypher system. So
they're bringing Numenera to 5th edition. That was a Kickstarter a while back. So yeah, really exciting.
So there's still plenty of information for those of us that love 5e to go out and get. I feel like this is a book that will probably do well because there is a large critter community that will buy and purchase the book. I don't know if you're not a critter fan, if you just happen to be browsing on the shelf, it might grab you. You might pick it up and say, well, I don't know. I've got this Eberron one. And I'm looking at the cover.
I really want to flip through it, and then I want to make my choice if I want to get it or not. Because I guess a lot of these books I buy real quickly. I pre-order. I'm really excited. I want it the day it arrives, kind of a thing. But this one I was like, no, I think I'm going to wait. And Saltmarsh was like that. And I was like, I think I'm going to wait. And I flipped through it and I'm like, this is really cool. And then I picked it up, so. Yeah,
I loved reading that first little chapter in Saltmarsh. It was so good. Even though I haven't ran it. It's been one of my favorite first reads. That one in Ravnica really grabbed me from the previous couple of books. The other ones have been good. And Descent to Avernus has been good. All those books have been really good. I mean, I'm loving Tomb of Annihilation. This Wednesday, is my final game, final session of Tomb of Annihilation. Spoilers. What? And then we're going to be starting a whole new campaign, and we're going to Waterdeep. We're going to jump back to that campaign. So it is interesting, and there's definitely lots of stuff out there. So even though I don't know if I'm going to be a huge fan of this book, I'm still excited that we're getting a book. I think it's going to be cool. And I'm excited to see how some of these subclasses play into the meta of what's going on. Being able to make some of these characters on D&D Beyond is going to be cool. And I'm curious to see where we go for 2020, because they've got a lot planned. I feel like the 2020 year is going to be a big year for them. How do you not do the D2020 year? How do you not make that just huge and just like send out all the different campaigns? And if it was me, I'd be like, let's just blow it out. Let's just do everything this year. And even if it's too much, we don't care, because it's year 2020 and we're just going to go crazy and nuts. But I don't know. I'm excited to see what they're going to do. And I felt like we might look back at this a year from now. So we're at show 100. All of you that are going to be here for show 200. When we come back, we want to do a look back. I want to play this clip show. And I'm going to play this clip right now where Lucian says, this might be the spot where Pathfinder comes back into prominence because D&D makes a misstep of some sort, where the community makes the turn, because they've been so high on how great D&D is, but there's always a turn. There's always a fall somewhere in there. It might be 6 years in, it might be 7 years in, it might be 10 years in, and then the turn happens and then everybody wants to play something else. I wonder if this is the Pathfinder turn where it comes back to prominence like it did back in 3.5 starts to go down, 4E starts to get released, and then everybody wants to play Pathfinder instead, including the great Matthew Mercer, who was playing a Pathfinder campaign instead of a Dungeons & Dragons campaign at the time, because that system they enjoyed more at that time. And there were a lot of people that loved Pathfinder before they get it going. Yeah, he converted.
Sir, if I could flip over my table right now, I would, but there's expensive computer hardware on it.
How dare you? Meet me outside. That is it. Let's go. So, yeah, we'll see. Episode 200, we'll come back and we'll check that clip and we'll see if I was right or not. So.
Speaking of 2020, there has been no mention of D&D Live for a 2020 until a couple days ago when Greg Tito, literally January 16th, 2 days ago, Dale Kingsmill, who's she has a YouTube channel, she's really cool, from Down Under. She's talking about taking a trip to Seattle and I don't know. And then Greg Tito's like, well, there's always D&D Live 2020, hint, hint. But it was usually, anyway, that's all. We don't need to super talk about that because it's all speculation. But apparently there's going to be a D&D Live event. I
think we knew that. There had to be, because those type of things, to get those venues, you have to book them a year in advance or more. So they must have already, back when they had done the big Descent to Avernus, they were already saying, we want to make it bigger and better, which means we already have to commit and get the room. So there's no way to back out at this point. What I am surprised about is they haven't said anything about it yet as far as what's going on. They haven't even given us a hint. Is it a Wildmount D&D online event, 3-day weekend type thing, 4-day weekend kind of thing? Is it a new campaign in Forgotten Realms, which is probably more like, what we would expect? Is it doing something they haven't done yet? Is it turning into a convention, kind of like Gen Con turned into a convention when they were the big player there? And there was other stuff and there was plenty of other things to go, but they made it big. They helped get that thing off the ground. And is this another one of those type of things that we're going to see, where this is the start of a convention that grows out to become like a PAX, which is going on right now? A bunch of people are at PAX South, we're seeing. So everybody's down at PAX South having a good old time. So that's cool. So I'm wondering. Yeah.
And then we touched on this a little bit, but new subclasses, new Unearthed Arcana. We have the Barbarian Path of the Beast, Monk Way of Mercy, Paladin Oath of the Watchers, and Warlock the Noble Genie. Barbarian Path of the Beast kind of feels like you're like a werewolf kind of thing. Like you can get tails and claws and attack that way.
I want to play it so bad.
The Monk Way of Mercy was kind of like a healing monk. You can use your ki to heal wounds and do things like that, which is kind of cool. I don't remember Oath of Watchers. I read it. I literally did, but I don't remember it. Is it, what do you remember?
Yeah.
Is it forgettable? Because I forgot about it.
Well, I was so focused on Path of the Beast because I was so good. I'm trying to remember what the whole Oath of the Watchers was.
And then my personal favorite, something that I've wanted for a long time, is a warlock patron that is a genie. And reading this, so I was most excited about the warlock. Reading it, they did not go in a direction that I anticipated at all for how they were going to make a genie warlock work. But I kind of like it. I thought it was different and fun. And I'm like, I would play this character. Like a pseudo support warlock that you like tether yourself to another person. And then you can kind of like share damage and cast spells from their perspective. And it made, I don't know, it was really interesting. I was not anticipating it, and it's not the warlock genie I wanted, but I like it. So
yeah. The Oath of the Watchers was fighting like the great old one, Cthulhu monsters or aberration stuff and that kind of things that were trying to break into our universe kind of stuff. That's what it was. Yeah. And that did sound pretty cool. And you're right. The Noble Genie was, I think, a really cool idea for a patron. I just got done reading a book, Dungeoneers, which is I brought up a few times. In their third book, they are tasked with going and checking out this pyramid that is being run by a trapped genie. And what the genie does is uses magic to make the pyramid respawn everything so that adventurers can go. They pay to go in, they do their thing, and they come out and they sell all their trinkets, and then they get to pay to go back in, and the genie resets it with magic all the time because this ruler has caught it, and it's turned into a money scheme.
Lucian.
So it's kind of a funny thing. I thought, oh, that's such a cool, funny tie-in that there's this whole genie. And he talks about this whole genie world that is outside of the regular world where all the genies live and where they hang out. And every now and then one of them gets captured and brought to our world and is not allowed to go back. And that's where the stories of the genie stuff comes from in this book. And I thought, oh, that's kind of a cool twist. That's a cool take. It'd be interesting to maybe do a campaign based on that, this idea of a trapped genie that you're maybe trying to help. And maybe it's it helps you in some ways to try to help get freed. It's always about being imprisoned in some way. So there's a cool theme there about that kind of thing, kidnapping, or the idea of the gilded prison. It's a prison, but it's nice. It's got cool silk sheets and pillows and everything's great. And the food tastes wonderful, but it's still a prison. And how do you get your players to understand that and want to be sympathetic to the genie who might be trapped in that way? So it's a cool theme that you could play out. So yeah, that one. So that whole Unearthed Arcana, I felt like was really strong. It feels Dan Dillon definitely has a lot of fingers in this one. I think Dan Dillon was working at, Cobalt Press before doing stuff like with classes and things. And you can tell that they brought him on board now and they're doing that same kind of stuff because these all felt pretty strong to me. Even some people were like, oh, I don't really need the Way of the Mercy Monk, but really every class at this point is going to have some healer option.
Yeah.
And that allows the player not to have to say, well, all right, we're going to start a campaign. Who's playing the cleric? Who wants to play the cleric? Because we have to have the cleric. And if the cleric's the only one that can heal, then somebody has to play the cleric because we have to have the cleric. But we don't have to do that in 5e Dungeons & Dragons. We can play a complete campaign with no cleric at all and have plenty of healing and plenty of stuff. In fact, my Tomb of Annihilation group has no cleric. We have other ways that healing comes in and does things. In my Seeking Revenor campaign, the main group has no cleric. They run, all these other classes that have healing in some way, druids, paladins, whatever it might be. And I like the idea that you might get monks, you might have a healing warlock in there, you might have a healing. I think the only thing we don't have is a healing wizard, but maybe we'll get that at some point too.
And I don't know, the idea. The stereotype is that people don't like playing healers, but that is wrong. People do enjoy playing healers. So let's say this monk, it's like, well, why? We don't need a monk that heals. If you're playing a monk, you want to like punch stuff and do things like that. And it's like, no, even though I'm a monk, or even though I want to play a monk, I tend to lean towards a support role. And this is the class for me. So like, that's kind of how I look at it, because you could play a bard and be full support. Inspiration to your party members, curing, healing, getting rid of things, all this other stuff. Or you could play a bard that is full attack. And that's one class that has two different aspects to it. So why can't other classes have that? Kind of like like this monk thing. So I didn't find any problem with it. You were talking about Kobold Press, and if you guys are interested in some extra like spells and magic and classes,
Deep Magic,
they have a whole line of PDFs that you can buy called Deep Magic, and I'm looking at like 19 I think I have here. Clockwork magic, rune magic, shadow magic, ring magic, dragon magic, hieroglyphic magic, time magic, combat divination, winter magic. There's lots of really cool stuff here. So Kobold Press has been putting out a lot of nice stuff for D&D 5e, and actually they're doing a Kickstarter soon for Tome of Beasts 2. I don't know if you saw that, but they're going to have another.
I'm all in. So. I got their Tome of Beasts 1 up on the shelf right now, and it's been good. So I can't wait for another one. I use
that a lot, so really cool. Anyway, I'm excited for Unearthed Arcana. It looks like they really are pushing into getting new subclasses for us. So we're going to get a Xanathar type book at some point.
Here's my question. Looking at that group of 4, does it lead you into thinking any one campaign would fit these 4 to show up in a book? Do these feel like Ravnica? Do these feel like Dark Sun? Do these feel like Greyhawk? Do these feel like
because the other barbarian was like a Fey magic barbarian, which made me think that you were going to do like a Feywild Shadowfell book. But with the psionics and this and if we add that and you kind of put it all together, I'm like, this doesn't really compute for Jordan. I don't know.
So like, it's feeling more like you're back to a Xanathar's? Is that what you're thinking? Back to a non-campaign specific?
I think it's going to be like, here's some new subclasses for you. So
I think that's what it is. I think they're building up for another big subclass book.
Because Xanathar sold really well. And I
love
think
that book.
Those books sell better than campaigns because only DMs really buy campaigns, and not every DM is going to buy a campaign book.
Yeah.
But every player is going to want new options, and they're going to buy this. So
yeah, and I can't imagine the number of Xanathar's books I've seen at the table already while I was playing. So there's people buying that left and right, and they weren't DMs. They weren't DMs at all. So definitely Xanathar. I definitely want another Xanathar's guide at this point, and I want more spells. I want more cool magic items. I want more cool mechanics that we can play around and swap around into our games. And I definitely want more subclasses. I wouldn't even mind another 1 or 2 main classes, though I feel like they're shying away from that. They're trying to fill all the gaps with just subclasses and keeping the ones they have, the 12, now 13 if you go with Artificer. But I don't know. That's just an arbitrary number on their part. There's no reason you couldn't do more classes to fill holes instead of more subclasses to fill holes. But it's all the same because it's just playing mechanics and what you get to do with as a player and what can you do as a concept for a character. And you can play anything now in D&D 5e. Like you can take any cool, fun character that you've seen in a movie or a TV show or a book or a comic or whatever it is, and you can say, how can I make this in 5e? And there's a way to do it, even right now, even with just the options that are there right now. You made Iron Man. You could make, I did a Black Panther that would work out comic book wise. You could make The Witcher at this point. You could make any of those using all the options that are out there. So that's what's really cool about it. So it's great. I'm loving it.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children and mice, hamsters of all ages, I reached out to our good friends at Dice Dungeons. You can check them out at dicedungeons.com.
Sponsor of today's show.
Pretty much. They make really cool tabletop RPG stuff, and they sent us $100 worth of items to give away. So if you check the YouTube chat, and I'll put it in Twitch chat too, you can go and sign up for... Actually, I want to refresh this and see... Yeah, we already have 127 entries, so that's awesome.
Nice.
So I'll put it in Twitch chat. And if you click that link there's a link that says check out the prizes, which will take you to Imager, so you can kind of see. I took some pictures of them this morning. But go enter, and I'm going to show off a little bit of the stuff we have right now. So Dice Dungeons sent us cloth battle maps. So these are they're fun. They're cloth. This
easy
one needs
to travel
to be ironed,
with.
but easy to travel with. You roll it up and you can lay it down. Super cool stuff. They also sent us some, and there are two of those maps actually. So, and that one was mine because I have one. But this is an ocean and the one I just showed you. So you get 2 of those. They make a lot of coins. And so they made inspiration coins. And these are coins that you can hand to your player to remind them they have inspiration if you're a bard or a dungeon master if you use inspiration. And so you get 3 of those and a fancy dice bag. They also make monster token coins.
Very cool.
And these are, this is like a zombie. And then on the back is got it scratched through when it dies or when it's at half health or something like that. Yeah. And there's 4 of those. 5 of those. Sorry, I'm losing count. And they also come in a nice little dice pouch.
And I used to do that. We used to have pennies and nickels and quarters on our map back in the day when we didn't have minis and we had a big battle going. That's so 80s for me. It's awesome.
No, it's super fun. We have a rolling mat, which is really, really awesome.
Snap together.
And it snaps together. It's got the Dice Dungeons logo in the center. It is purple. And then the piece, the main prize, I think, is this metal set of dice.
Which I'm going to buy. And they've got another Kickstarter coming for some more stuff too pretty soon.
Well, their Kickstarter's out for a new set of dice. So if you want to check that out, go to Kickstarter, search Dice Dungeons. But these are just really, they're metallic, so they're heavy. Really pretty dice.
They're awesome.
And all of this will be going to one lucky person. All you have to do is click the Gleam link to enter our giveaway. And maybe say thank you, Dice Dungeons, for being like such a, they were really cool. Cause I just asked them, I'm like, hey, we're going to do this thing. Like I could give away some stuff, but if you guys want to, we'll talk you up and blah, blah, blah. And they were like on it and they sent us $100 worth of stuff.
Yeah.
Really cool. Really nice people. They're going to be at Gen Con this year. So if you do see them at their booth, tell them Jordan sent you and that, you love their stuff and all that other stuff. Yeah, so go enter the giveaway. It's going to run for, I think, 5 days, and then I will email the winner, and then we will announce the winner if they have accepted the prize. We will announce it on the next Saturday morning D&D show, so next Saturday.
Very cool.
Really, it was so cool. So I'm so excited that we got to do that for episode 100. It's going to be lots of fun. And
so thank you, Dice Dungeons, for sure from us, just in case you happen to be watching or if you're watching later. Thank you so much for that because it's super cool. And everybody in the community, definitely just go to their website. Even if you don't win, just go to their website, look around, even just getting eyes on their stuff, just looking at it. Even if you can't buy anything right now, it's cool. I'm going there to buy some of the cool dice because I love that little tin. I like their logo that's on top of it. The way they're doing stuff that's really cool. I love it. And I'm jumping over there to buy a few things too. It's cool.
Oh, they're so fun. They're really cool people. So that is our thank you to you. You guys have been supporting us, watching us. We have a really close group of fans and with the Discord and everything else. And it's just been super fun to have you guys interact with us, watch us live, check out the podcast, and
meet us in person.
That's always been really fun too at Gen Cons and things like that. So just thank you. And I'm really excited for the lucky winner of all of this stuff. I will be personally mailing it out. If you don't live in the US, you are more than welcome to enter. If I check that you're in Germany and it's going to cost me $100 to mail this to you, I might select a new winner. I don't want to say don't enter if you're outside of the US, but I really want to send it to somebody in the US because it's a lot of money to get it. Even to Canada, it gets really expensive to send it off to stuff. But that is the situation we are in with that. So thank you again, Dice Dungeons. You're awesome.
Yes.
We have a mailbag episode, and this is going to be a longer episode, by the way. I think we're going to go till, I don't know, a half hour over, maybe longer. We'll see. And originally it was going to be nothing but mailbag, but then we had all this news to talk about. That we didn't want to not talk about. But also games this week, I wanted to talk about, I had a TPK in my Salt Marsh game.
That.
The entire
How dare you?
Game is done and over with. We talked about it at the table and it yeah, there was just no way for me to salvage what was going to happen. So anyway, I'll get into what it is. So
how does a 5e these days 5e heroes get killed? I'm a dungeon master. I can't seem to ever kill my players. So how did this even happen with superhero like characters in 5e? Yeah. I'm all about hearing how this happened.
So they're level 7. And they're in a dungeon, and the part of the Saltmarsh book is called The Final Enemy. And they're supposed to scout around and get information on the Sahagwin and report back. So it's different to me because the dungeon has 3 entrances. One at the top that is not in the water, and then 2 at the bottom level that are in the water. One of them is barricaded off that they can't get to it, but they decided to swim around and find like a backdoor entrance. So they did. And they went in through the back door, and so they kind of explored from the 3rd level and went up to, rather than, I think the book kind of assumes that you're going to go from the top level down, but they did it in reverse. But that's Dungeons and Dragons, right? Like if there's an entrance, you should be able to do it this way, and that's what they did. The big problem is that levels 3 and 2 are underwater. Everybody can breathe underwater except for the dwarf barbarian, and he has to chug a water potion every hour. They have a lot of them, but he has to chug a water potion every hour, so they couldn't long rest under the water. I think the big failing decision was that they decided to press on and go up to try and find... They knew that the first level was outside of the water, so they tried to go... they were like, well, we'll just climb up till we're no longer out of the water, and then we'll take a long rest. But they didn't exactly know how to get there. They did a short rest, and they literally had to go north or south. South would have taken them to the top layer out of the water, and north took them to the boss of the entire dungeon, and they went north. I think they were a little like cocky, for lack of a better word, but
not anymore. They're not.
Well, so they were listening, and they went around the corner, and I said, you guys hear, I had them roll perception, and I'm like, you guys hear some voices. And so the barbarian swum up to the entrance and kind of was listening, and he's like, well, what do I hear? And I told him what he hears. And I said, do you want to peek around the corner? And he's like, well, how many voices do I hear? And I'm like, well, you hear 2 voices. He's like, okay. And so he swims back, and he's like, guys, there's 2 people over there. I think we can take them. And the rest of them were like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So I was like, are you guys stealthing? Are you sneaking in? What do you want to do? And they were like, no, we just kind of walk in casually. Like, we're going to interrogate this guy. It's going to be awesome. So they walk into pretty much a throne room. There are 2 sharks, a 4-armed Sahagwin like guy on a throne, his priest, 2 other soldiers, and 1 regular Sahagwin that is like talking to the guy on the throne. And everybody stops talking because they just walk right in. And it was at that moment they realized that they had made a bad choice. And we rolled initiative. We started playing. Sahagwin has a trait called bloodthirst or blood frenzy. So anybody that is at lower than your max hit points, a Sahagwin has advantage on that attack roll.
Oh boy.
And that's what it was. It just went downhill. So between the sharks that have blood frenzy, between all of the Sahagwin that have blood frenzy, they tried to like barricade, and I'll give them credit. Like the paladin lasted, I think 2.5 rounds. But I just kept rolling natural 20s, and I kept doing all this other stuff. Retreat wasn't an option because a lot of our players had swim speed, but the artificer only had a swim speed of 10 feet because he's just not in a place to get out fast enough. He had no swim speed. It was just bad news bears. So they got annihilated. My
They got wrecked.
Like super wrecked. They took out one of the Sahagwin, but the rest of them just like ate him for breakfast.
Did anybody try to run, or did they just like that where they nailed us?
They were thinking about running, but the barbarian, the Sahagwin priestess had the spell banishment. So she cast banishment on the barbarian. He disappeared from existence. They mopped up everybody else. And then the barbarian reappeared. All of his friends are dead. And they like mobbed him and attacked him to death. And here's the thing is like, I wanted the Sahagwin to take them captive. But I was thinking about their personalities. And I'm just like, no, they wouldn't do that. They would just kill you. Like, you're an outsider. Yeah. They're preparing for war on Saltmarsh. There is absolutely no reason that they would keep you alive to interrogate you or anything. And no, they're going to kill you. So they killed him. And we talked about it. We're kind of like, I don't see a reason. I don't see a way for you guys to like come back or to even make new characters. Does that make sense? Like to make new characters and kind of, start up where we left off, because I feel like it's done. So they were upset, but not like angry. I think they all understood that it was like, this happens and it's part of the game. And without this risk, the game loses all kinds of I don't know, like thrill, excitement. Like you have to have that there has to be that thing, sword of Damocles has to be right over your head in order for you to get that excitement of like, we could die, you know? Yeah. Otherwise it's a cakewalk.
Was there any blame pointed at you? Like it was your fault this happened and not their fault? Or did they totally fully realize this was their fault?
I think a lot of them thought, they were like, no, we should not have investigated, or we should have stealthed in. We should have like maybe peeked around the corner to see what was there. I didn't feel a lot of blame on my part. I did roll a lot of natural 20s, including a natural 20 third level guiding bolt from my priestess, who did 12d6 damage to the bard and one-shotted him. So that was really fun. But no, I don't feel a lot of blame. I think they were just disappointed that it's like, well, I don't know. But we also have a lot of games we want to play. This is another excuse for us to jump into that other game. And by the end of the night, we were all talking about this level 13 campaign we're going to play, or a one-shot.
All talking about new characters.
Well, not new characters. We're going to play old characters. But in our custom game that my DM runs, we lost one of our players, lost his character his name is Lorenzo. And Lorenzo got sucked into basically a black hole and is gone. And so this one shot is called The Search for Lorenzo. And we're going to try and find him and get him back. And so it's one of those happy things, like at the end of the game, we're like, oh, we lost. But then everybody went home so excited for the next game that we're going to play. And I think that's the magic of Dungeons and Dragons. But I have never had a TPK that was so blatantly like
decisive.
Yeah, like I was just like, it's over, guys. Like there's no coming back from this. And then the Sahagwin invade Saltmarsh. Saltmarsh falls because you weren't there to protect it. Wow. The whole city is done. You know,
did you do like an epilogue scene at the end where did you do that? Did you say like, here's what happened? You guys didn't defeat this. They spread out, you know, and they do this. And now this place is no,
that would have, I should have done that. Maybe no, we just kind of talked about like what could have happened and things like that. Cause they were curious where the story would have gone. Cause I mean, Saltmarsh goes till you're like level 12 or 13. And I feel really bad cause Nathan bought me a Christmas present that was that wooden boat that I unboxed around December. Yeah. And he's like, no, I really want this. I want you, Jordan, to have this boat. So when we get our boat in Saltmarsh, we have a boat to like move around at the table. And I'm like, well, we don't have that now.
Maybe a different campaign. We could use the boat.
It's a cool boat though. So no, it's just crazy. So that was my TPK, and I don't know.
Funny.
You got to have that danger though. That danger has to be real, you know? So
Saltmarsh killed. Well, I'm sure we're going to die in the Tomb of Annihilation. So I'm sure that's coming.
What level are you guys?
We just hit level, I want to say 11 or 12, because right at the end of the session, the assumption is going to be that we have a long rest and we'll get our points and we'll be there. So I think I'm 11 or 12. So that's about as far as we made it. Which
okay.
is pretty good. Which is a pretty powerful
I
war
think
wizard
okay.
at level
I think
12
be
is
okay.
bad. Pretty good. So
I think you'll be okay.
But you're going up against a lich, so you never know.
Yeah.
Right?
William in chat actually has a really good idea where he's like, you should have a new adventure with a new group that tries to reclaim Saltmarsh after they're taken over by Sahagwin.
5 years later.
Exactly. Now Saltmarsh is a Sahagwin city. They've sunk it under the water. And new adventurers have to come in and take it over. See,
I want to play that campaign.
That would be really fun. And we could start at like level 7 or 8 with brand new characters. I think my group wants to do not that. I think they're excited for other games, but that's a perfect example of how even a total party kill, a terrible loss, doesn't necessarily mean that the game is over. So keep that.
No, because we can be so excited for what's next. Like, even if it's not continuing on, we can say, now we're going to do this thing that we've all been wanting to do. So we can do that thing too, or I can try this new thing I wanted to do. And yes, I loved my character from before, and I'd hate to see that character go, but man, now I can embrace this next step. Or as a dungeon master, now I can embrace this different storyline that I've been wanting to do. That's all about zombies taking over the world, whereas now we're done with Saltmarsh. It's cool. I can kind of explore that, or I can explore the Feywild more that I wanted to do, or let's go to the Shadowfell, or whatever it might be. So I think going into it, I think that's the talk you have when you start your campaign is, hey guys, we're gonna have this great campaign. It's gonna be awesome. If something happens and we all die, embrace it, love it. Then we'll do this next cool thing. So it'll be okay. So I like that. I enjoy being able to think about the next thing, because the most exciting part of any campaign is the week leading up to the start of that campaign, as you're building your character and you're talking to the people that are going to play. And as a dungeon master, you're thinking about all these things you want to do or can do or might happen all that time. That's the biggest moment of excitement for any campaign, is right at the beginning. So. And
I'm going to 100% agree with you. So I'm jumping towards the end of the show. We're not done by any means, but I'm going to be a guest star on Indoor Adventurers 4 Keeps game on Monday night. And he talked to me and he's like, well, what do you want to play? And so Jordan pulls up his, big list of every character I've ever made that I want to play. And I'm looking at him and I'm like, well, what about this one? And I was going to bring back Dirk the Kobold Thief.
Yes.
And I'm like, I've played him in Lucian's game, and I've played him in our friend Casey. My friend Casey ran it. She was in a game that she had me guest star on, and I played the Kobold Thief Dirk. And I was talking to Indoor about this, and he's like, that sounds pretty cool. And he's like, well, they're going to be in the Underdark. And I was like, oh, do I have a drow that I've wanted to play for so long? I was like, are drow in your world? And he's like, there are drow in my world. And he's been giving me information about, because this is a custom world, so he's been giving me information about the world. I'm contributing kind of like, well, I thought about this character like this, and he's like, I love it, what if we tweak it like this? And we've been going back and forth, and I am so excited to play in this game. It's just like, I'm just guest starring, but I don't know, it's a character I've wanted to play for a long time. It's going to be a lot of fun. So be sure to check out Indoor Adventurers channel on Twitch this Monday at, I think, 5:30 Pacific, and I will be in there, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Very cool.
I'm really excited. So that's going to be really fun. But you're right. I'm so excited about this silly character, and I don't know. It's just been really exciting. So, now that it's an hour, let's get into our mailbag, I guess. We asked you guys to put a bunch of questions. I took all of them, I think, that I could find, and I put them into a document here that we're looking at. So I guess I'll just kind of go down the line. We don't have to answer all of these. If maybe I'll ask you one, Lucian, and you can ask me one, and we can kind of bounce back and forth.
Sure.
But, Daniel Watson says, biggest influence on your writing style or campaign D&D design and their best works. What has influenced you in your not Saltmarsh, but your
Seeking
Revenar game? That one's you're working on.
My biggest influence has to be credited to two people for sure: Matt Colville, Adam Coble.
Okay.
I watch their shows. I listen to their office hours. I watch their running the campaign videos, and I really took a lot of their advice and then took my imagination of what I thought would be cool for what I wanted to play in, but taking their advice and how to make that cool, and then doing that and letting my players jump in and see what happens.
Yeah.
And that has been cool. So West March's style game that I really like the idea of being open world in some ways, bringing in a little bit of the tie-ins to like massively multiplayer online games when we played MMORPG stuff. And I wanted a big spanning world, but I wanted it tied back in. But I needed mechanics to do those kinds of things. I needed ideas for good villains. I needed how to run good encounters, things to keep in mind while playing, and those kinds of things, and all of that stuff. So those are my big influences. And then a little bit of throwback to bring some of the Greyhawk stuff back into 5e. So I converted some old modules, or at least parts of them that I wanted, into 5e. And it was fun to go back and look at some of that old stuff and bring it back to into the present now. So those have been my big influences for my D&D 5e stuff. It's all come from kind of their advice, and then some ideas that I had about, oh, this would be fun if I got to play in this kind of thing. So, but what about you? What's been your, you've run you've got a homebrew campaign, and you ran several Wizards of the Coast official campaigns.
Yeah.
Where's your influence coming from?
Well,
what's the biggest influence on your style?
The biggest influence, and I know that this sounds really cheesy, and it's why I started my channel, my YouTube channel. I think it's just the Forgotten Realms novels. Like, I got really attached to those Drizzt novels. And while I was reading those is when Acquisitions Incorporated, the podcast, was also coming out. So I was listening to D&D, and then I was like reading these books, and I got really attached to the Underdark because of them. And then it was like, no, I'm going to take the plunge, and I'm going to like do this. And so playing 4th edition Dungeons and Dragons, I really got heavily involved in the realms, and I was very confused. And so then reading all of that, I don't know, when I started reading the lore and history of the Forgotten Realms and those campaign setting books, I got so many ideas for campaigns. And it's like, I want to do this. I want to go here. I want to do an underwater campaign here. And I was able to incorporate a lot of that into my Dungeons and Dragons 4th edition game. And I got a lot of it out of my system, I guess. I'm like, oh, I really want to do this, and I want to have I've talked about this before, but I really had this cool idea about a dwarf that wanted to mine the ocean floor. And then I got a whole like section of my campaign where my players were on a boat, and they were like in submarines trying to mine the ocean floor. And I just thought that was really cool. And so I don't know, I was heavily inspired by those books, but like Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings and like so many other things, like there's lots of fantasy out there that has inspired me. And
Hot Springs Island,
Hot Springs Island,
big campaign.
Yeah, like I just like complete worlds, and as I'm reading more of these, I like sandboxy things. Like this Shadowfell Gloomrot and Beyond, this 4th edition book. I'm loving it so much, and I have to prep some stuff for tomorrow's game, and I just flip through it, and I'm like, oh, this is perfect. And then I like build some monsters, and we have a good time. So yeah, I think those have been pretty huge on just like the process for me. So yeah.
Very cool. Well, thanks for the question, Daniel Watson.
Yeah. K-Dub says, have you ever had a campaign end before it was over? And if you do, or if you did, what caused it? How did you fix it?
Yeah.
Have you had many games just end like that?
Yeah.
Before
And
they're over?
The problem was me is in being a new dungeon master.
I wasn't going to say anything, but now that you said it out loud.
And running out of steam or not knowing where to take the campaign next, I've fallen into that trap a couple of times. And I've had just kind of stopped at some point and said, well, I've ran out of ideas for this. So, hey guys, let's build new characters and do this new thing. Cause I have this new cool idea to do this other thing, and let's play this other game and cool thing. So I've had that happen. Now I'm trying to push through it with Seeking Revenor, where I hit a lull and I need to bring it back into a nice, because once they tie up a story arc that you've had and you've worked on for so long, sometimes you don't really know what you're going to do next. And me and you have talked about your campaign where, they finally beat the Black Pyramid. They still want to go home, but they haven't got home yet. But now, how does that even work? Because you haven't really thought that far ahead, or maybe your storylines haven't progressed that far. Or like we just talked about for 20 minutes, a TPK could all of a sudden just, okay, we're done, and now let's talk about what we're going to do next. But for me, it's always been, it's not been my players who've not wanted to play. It's been me running out of ideas, and me as a dungeon master having to practice getting better at being a dungeon master helps push that further and further along before it happens. But it still happens every now and then. And I'm trying to get better at not letting it happen as much. So, I'm taking lots of influences. I'm watching lots of other people's games and how they do them. Because I've never ran a game for 2 years, a 2-year campaign, or I've never ran a 10-year campaign. And you hear some of these people have run 20-year campaigns, 30-year campaigns, or whatever. And I've never been able to do that yet. I'm still working on my skills as a dungeon master and storytelling in that way, or setting up stories that can be told and see how they happen. So I'm working on it. I'm trying to get it. But right now it still comes down to I run out of ideas and I have to try to think up what's the next thing.
Man, for me, I mean, this Saltmarsh game is a prime example of a game that just ended. But I guess I've been really lucky because I've had a good solid group of people that I've always played with, and we take breaks, but we always kind of come back. And so the campaign is never really over, kind of a thing. We did have a 4th edition game where, and I mean, this is sad, and I don't think I handled this the best way, but we were friends with this girl and her boyfriend, and they wanted to play D&D with us. And so we'd all play D&D. Well, they broke up, and the girl decided that she's like, well, I just won't play D&D so he can. But we were like, well, no, we like you. Like, we're not really attached to your boyfriend. We like you. So he would come, and it was just awkward, and we didn't know him. And it was one of those things. And he was sort of running a game for us, but nobody was having a fun time. And so we kind of, and I feel bad saying this, but we kind of just dissolved the group. And then a month later, we called everybody up except for him and said, do you guys want to play? And then that's the group that I've been playing with ever since. But it was just one of those things where it happens, And so that is a group that, like, I was running a 4th edition game, and he was running a 4th edition game, and 5th edition had just come out. So we kind of like, well, let's just stop all of those and we'll play 5th edition. And 4th edition, I was running a modified game of a 2nd edition adventure called Rod of the Seven Parts. And it's a good one. I'm really excited. I'm like pseudo announcing this now. I don't have all of the cards in place yet, but I'm going to be running that as a 5th edition adventure in the Forgotten Realms, probably starting this February. Streaming. We're going to stream it on Wednesdays. So that'll be really exciting. I don't have all of my players yet, so we're still figuring it out, but it's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm really excited to play that one again, because I love the lore and history behind that. And that's a Greyhawk adventure though, but I'm going to take it and put it in Forgotten Realms. So it should be really cool.
Right. Very cool.
What tweaks to 5th edition rules do you use at your table?
Since I run an open world kind of game, we made some adjustments to when you can level up. Having to be back in town, having to be, if you want a long rest, that's going to affect certain things. We were doing things like to make travel short so that the episodes could all be about the RP and the action and the combat, and not about us traveling from point A to point B. We turned that into like its own little mini game of doing like a survival check, doing a perception check, doing a nature check, and doing this other stuff that all kind of tells us what happens on the journey there and back. So we can kind of abstract that a little bit to save us time, because we're running about 3-hour sessions on Twitch. So we wanted to make sure the action was all there, that we could do that. So that was another thing. We were also doing, if you roll a 1 while you're on your damage or on to hit, then your weapon becomes less effective. It becomes a -1 to damage until you get it fixed by a blacksmith, which has happened quite often in the campaign, more than I ever thought it would. We abstracted rations, so we didn't have to worry about counting rations.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think if there's any other mechanics. There might be, but those are the main mechanics. We also had a set of mounted combat mechanics that I created because I didn't like the way mounted combat worked in 5e the way it is now, and I wanted it to be more dynamic, and I wanted to have more pluses minuses. I wanted to be, if you're going to do mounted combat, you're going to get this really cool thing, but here's the negative that you get with that. You get a really cool positive, but you also get a negative, right? Yeah. So, and I wanted to make it dynamic, and I wanted to make it so it was more story driven and more dramatic of a choice to go through. So we built some of those, but I think those are the ones that I did.
Yeah, it kind of changes for games for me. Like Hot Springs Island, we had a couple of survival mechanics that I had because it fit the narrative of that game.
Right.
And then my Saltmarsh game, I actually made the conscious choice to play exactly by the rules and not fudge dice, which was another reason that we had the TPK. Because sometimes I'll be like, yeah, that was a 2, natural 20. And this time I'm like, that's a natural 20. I'm sorry, guys. And it, led to their downfall. Because I want people to have fun, and you can play the Razor's Edge and they can have a good time. But typically I only do that... it's a bonus action to drink a potion because I like that mechanic rather than an action to drink a potion. That's the official rule. And I had another one that I do. I use inspiration differently. So I think inspiration by the rules gives you advantage on a roll. And I say you can use inspiration to re-roll a die. So if, for example, I think this is how the rule. Yeah, well, no, not damage. Only a D20. But I think how people use it is like, ooh, this is a really hard roll. I'm going to use my inspiration to get advantage. So you hand me the coin, and then you roll 2 dice, and you have advantage. I let you roll the die and be like, oh, that was a 2. Okay, I'll take your inspiration coin, and you can re-roll that. And that's kind of I like it that way. And it really. They can kind of like stockpile inspiration for really difficult things. And I've had it at the table where this might feel broken, but I've had it at the table where someone's like, I want to roll, I roll a spell and it misses. And so they'll give me an inspiration coin and roll it again. It still misses. Somebody else gives me an inspiration coin and roll it again. And they'll do that. Or they can use it on a monster's resistance as well. So it's like Jordan, the monster makes a wisdom saving throw. They give me a coin. I have to roll it again and use whatever result is the new result. So I like that. Thing, that's fine.
Yeah. One other thing with inspiration we did is I allowed them to, when they're rolling their hit points to level up, they can choose to use their inspiration to re-roll that die if they want to.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool. That question from the lovely and talented LB Hackemup. Thank you, LB Hackemup. Skull Dixon says, what is the dumbest thing about the Forgotten Realms?
Well, you're the expert. I think my choice is, what's the dumbest thing about the Forgotten Realms is that they don't have a 5e all-encompassing campaign book out yet, and we're 6 years into it being their main realm. I think we really need, because we've gotten a lot of Sword Coast, but we haven't gotten a lot of anything else. Yeah. And Forgotten Realms is a really big place. So,
for me, I think it was the big reset with the Sundering. Like they did a really cool thing with the Spell Plague, and it changed the whole world. And I like that the world had ramifications. And if you wanted to, as a player, you could be like, well, I'm going to play in these 3rd edition books. And then if you play in the 4th edition books, you have the Spell Plague. But then for 5th edition, they just reversed everything so it looks like a 3rd edition book. And that, I think, is the dumbest thing, where I'm like, no, there should have been lasting consequences for that. So the people that want to play in a living, evolving world have that 5th edition book. Like, if you're going to call it the year 1492, it should reflect the Spell Plague. And then you could just say, well, I play in the Forgotten Realms, but I play in 1395. And before the Spell Plague and stuff. So I think that's always bugged me, because people hate on the Spell Plague, and so they literally got rid of it. And I don't know. I don't like that. So
I got one more answer because Skull Dixon says that's a cheat answer. Here's my second answer.
Okay.
All of the naming conventions that Wizards of the Coast uses to name their NPCs in the Forgotten Realms is ridiculously stupid.
They're hard.
None of the NPCs in Forgotten Realms have great names. They're all terrible, terrible NPC names. I don't know where they get them. I don't know where they come up with them, but they need a new naming index from somewhere. So that's my own opinion, though.
Okay. Danton the Magnificent, what is the best villain you have ever used in a campaign?
Best villain has been my Evil Druid. I think has been my best villain because it's this fanatic who believes civilization is what destroys worlds. So he does everything he can to destroy anything that's civilized. So temples and religions and towns and villages and farm, all of that stuff should be destroyed because that's what leads to the, destruction and the world ending and that stuff. So he's not about balance. He's about just going after everything. And I put him in my Seeking Revenor game, and he had a big climactic battle that had another goddess come in and try to fight him because he's become that powerful. He's torn down temples and erased religions off the world, and our players kind of bump into him in the Seeking Revenor thing. And he's still out there. They're going to bump into him again. Our campaign moved 50 years ahead with a new set of characters when we started up the second time. They haven't heard anything about this druid again in 50 years. Something's been going on. So eventually they're going to figure out what's happened. And when he comes back, he's coming back with a vengeance. So that's been my favorite villain to play so far.
What's his name? Does he have a name?
Nobody knows yet.
Well, favorite
no
villain.
Spoilers.
My favorite villain is the first one I created, which was Scatha the Purple Dragon. So my very first campaign of 5th edition that I was like figuring out, I wrote it myself and all this other stuff. I was really excited. I had this idea. I was reading a lot about dragon lore, and purple dragons are psychic dragons that live in the Underdark. They're not in 5th edition, but I like homebrewed one for whatever reasons. And I had the whole campaign revolved around this cult of drow. We're worshiping Scatha, this purple dragon, whose goal was to mind control the world. And if she could mind control the world, she could get the world to worship her. And if she got all of the worship, she could ascend and become a god. And that was kind of the idea. From the Forgotten Realms, a lot of gods get their power from their worshipers. And so if nobody's worshiping that god, they kind of fizzle out into non-existence. And I like this idea that all of these, or that this mind-controlling dragon could ascend to godhood if she could get enough people to worship her by mind-controlling them. So these drow were like using her, and we had a really cool fight. There was a fight against the drow that were trying to like raise Scatha to godhood. They stopped that, but Scatha is still a large purple dragon and ended up coming. And so then they had to fight the dragon and stuff, but that was just really fun. Like it was a looming presence for a long time that culminated into a really cool fight. So
I think it's funny. That's a theme that's been in both of our games. Like the McLancy Waddle adventure we did was the same thing of a goddess who used to be in Chult, but is no longer part of the pantheon that we know now. So has no followers. The only way to get back is to get followers again. So their scheme is to somehow find a way to become prominent within the world once again. And so that's a cool Forgotten Realms theme that I like.
Yeah. Yeah, gosh, and Scatha, I drew like a handmade symbol of Scatha, and like I was really involved in that.
That's
campaign.
cool.
It was
I like
really
it.
Fun. Josh Morgan says, "What's on your game shelves?"
You can see. I mean, there's all. Do you want me to read it all off?
What
it's crazy.
What's
I got
what
Alien at
out?
the top for sure.
Okay.
That's my favorite right now from Free League or Free League. Strongholds and Followers is right there, and then the D&D shelf is right there. So it's like all the D&D books, including Gods and Goddesses, the Baby Beastery, all that stuff. Down then we got Overlight, which was a really cool book, and then all of my Powered by the Apocalypse games. So like Dungeon World, Urban Shadows, Masks, all that stuff's down there. Legendary down in the bottom, the board game we played at Gen Con that everybody I think had fun with, and I bought a bunch of expansions for that. Oh, and you can see Keith Baker's Phoenix Dawn Command RPG that I haven't played yet.
Yeah.
I still want to play it. And then over here we got the ENI Award, Forbidden Lands, which everybody's been talking about from Free League too. Up at the top is all my Cypher System stuff and Warhammer. So we got the Strange Cypher System, Warhammer Fantasy, all the versions 1 through 4 up there now of all the books. Tal'Dorei campaign settings up there. Predation. Tales from the Loop, one of the best games I played. The only game that's even close to it is Kids on Bikes, but I still think I like Tales from the Loop even better because it's just super cool. The City of Kings board game there that I bought at Gen Con, that box was so big that it broke my bag walking out of Gen Con. Down at the bottom, I have a dragon that somebody got at a yard sale, a 2-headed dragon they gave me, which was cool. Then I have Gary Gygax's Dangerous Journeys box set. This is the game he created after he left TSR to no longer work for them and become his own. Writes a crazy RPG that's too hard for anybody to even figure out. And that's the stuff. That's on my gaming shelf. Some stuff's still downstairs, but
that's cool.
Those are the games. What about, you've got some games behind you.
Yeah. RPG wise, I've got and I'm looking at like PDFs because I have PDFs of everything because I like
get the
to have
cube.
It here.
Where's the cube?
Yeah,
How do you not have the cube?
The cube is open and books are scattered about, so I can't do that. Okay. But I have I bought the Tiny D6 game, which is really fun. It's like a little RPG that runs on a D6 system. Dungeon Crawl Classics, I have the main book, and then I got the Kickstarter expansion book that has like more stuff for clerics and stuff.
Did you get really MCC?
Cool. I have Mutant Crawl Classics as well. Yeah. I got what else did I get?
Invisible Sun.
Invisible Sun. So Invisible Sun is that huge game that I'm like really excited about and want to run. And I got the map behind me, the Path of the Sun's behind me, so that's really cool. Kids on Bikes, I really like. That's on my game shelf, as well as Teens in Space. This is and I got
You just got something like a week ago.
Mothership. I got Numenera. I bought the Numenera 2, which was really exciting. I have a Pathfinder. It's a Game Master book for Pathfinder 1, and I bought it because it's actually a system neutral fantasy generator, and so you can flip through and like generate towns and cities with it. So and it was really cool, and so I bought that. Which is awesome. Tales from the Loop I also bought, which is really cool. The Dark of Hot Springs Island. And I think that's about all the games that I have.
Oh, I forgot two.
Oh, and I've got some older Dungeons and Dragons games that I found my wife found at a yard sale and bought for me. So it's like the Fiend Folio from 2nd and 1st edition or something, but.
I forgot a couple.
Okay, go ahead, tell me.
The Fall of Delta Green, which is a kind of a Vietnam era RPG. I also forgot Part-Time Gods. That was a Kickstarter I did with Part-Time Gods, where you play some type of god that has an aspect. We played that on the channel, which was really cool. And the other one I forgot that was really cool is Carbon 2185, a cyberpunk game that was Kickstarted that I got too. So that was the other one.
And then as far as like, I'm not going to list all of my non-RPG games, but the ones that I really love are, I have to read it. Epic Spell Wars of the Battle Wizards Dual Outmount Skulls Fire. I really like this game. It's really fun. And the art is amazing. And I have the Scott Pilgrim's Precious Little Card Game. That's another favorite of mine. And then we just got Azul for Christmas, and we learned how to play it last night, and that is really fun. So those are my new favorite 3 games that just were like regular board games. But yeah,
very cool.
Fun.
Good question from Josh.
Yeah, thank you. What other fun questions do we have? I want to find like a good one. What would you like to see at D&D Live 2020? Or who would you like to see? That's from D&D Elise.
I would like to see Jordan at
D&D
Live. I would like to see myself at D&D Live 2020. I don't know if that'll happen the way the schedules work. Celebrity wise, if I bumped into somebody, I was there and I was like, oh, I hope this person's here. I mean, I like talking with Jeremy Crawford. I mean, I got to talk to him at a couple of other conventions where I bumped into him before, and he is just a really fun dude to sit and just and talk any discussion whatsoever. I think it's so I would love to bump back into him again at some point. Matt Colville.
Oh yeah, that'd be fun.
I love talking to him in our interview, and I still love all the stuff he's doing and the whole MCDM crew. So any of those people I'd love to bump into. I think that'd be cool. Those are probably my big. What about you? Who would you like to bump
I really want to meet Chris Perkins, and I want to just talk to him about game design and adventure design, and like, because I don't know, he's just been like, because of the acquisitions games and things like that, he's been a very strong influence in how I DM and stuff like that. So I'd like to meet him. And also Pat Rothfuss, like he just seems like a really fun person. And I would like to just be like, can we have a beer? Like, I just want to hang out with Pat Rothfuss. He seems really cool. So yeah. What are some of the most interesting third-party content that you've seen or used?
I'm gonna give you one more answer for the last question before I jump to it. Deborah Ann Wall, who I think is the greatest dungeon master. She's like the person I love to watch right now with all the shows she does dungeon mastering, because she does some really cool stuff in her games. Her whole relics and rarities show that she did was super fun and super cool. And I think that'd be another cool person to bump into. So, all right, what was the question?
Piston Power Last says, what are some of the most interesting third-party content that you have seen or used? What third-party stuff do you use?
Jetpack 7 puts out a bunch of stuff that I like to use. We just talked about Kobold Press puts out a bunch of stuff that I like to use. The Gods and Goddesses from Jetpack 7 was really cool, and I love using that in my game. Obviously, my superhero, Matt Colville's Strongholds and Followers, we're using that in our campaign and loving it. It overpowers your players, but just throw CR out the window and throw really crazy stuff at them, because they'll be able to survive it anyways with the crazy stuff that they get. So those are the two supplements that I'm using right now that I love and will probably continue to use, because I just like the stuff that they come with. So those are the two I'm using.
Yeah, and I'll say that, like, too. Strongholds I like and I've used. Kobold Press, I haven't used their magic or custom classes, but I use the monsters from Tome of Beasts and Creature Codex a lot, and those are really good. Frog God Games came out with a book called Book of Lost Spells, and it's not the best. Like, some of them are overpowered and things like that, but if you have players that have the PHB and Xanathars memorized, it's really fun to drop these weird spells on them. And they're like, what is this third level, like, sand blade? What is this? And it's like, well, you make a short sword out of sand. And they're just quirky, fun, weird spells. And so I've gotten a lot of use out of that to just kind of drop spells for wizards and stuff. And I like doing that because it's interesting to me. As far as like the DM's Guild, I don't know, there's lots in there. There's I want to use this thing called Forgotten Realms Deities, where somebody went through and all of the Forgotten Realms deities, they went through and made like custom classes for clerics and paladins that would follow that deity. And so you get really cool stuff, which if I ever get to play Elgath from your McGlancy Waddles game, I wanted to like switch him from a death cleric to like a Loviatar cleric using that supplement, because I think that would be really cool, because it's all about pain and stuff. It's really interesting. Yeah, and then Absolute Tabletop, Matt Click and a couple of other people that I can't remember their names, they run Absolute Tabletop, and they're not the most well known, but they're doing really cool stuff. And they've come out with they don't call them campaigns, they call them adventure kits, and they're kind of like a toned down, not more than a one shot, less than a campaign. And the idea is that you can take it and put it in your setting, or you can kind of like mix and match it and stuff. And they've made 2 so far. One is Oath of the Frozen King, that's really good, and the other one is Shadows over Drift Chapel. And they had Kickstarters for those, and those are really good, and I'd recommend those. I think they're super fun. So
I'll throw out a free resource out there for you guys. Go to the Dragon Plus magazine that they put on online, because a lot of times I've ran 3 different little adventures that they put out in that, and they all of them ran really well, and they were really fun, and they were really cool to run. And you can get that every month. They put it out for free, and you can just download it. And there's lots of cool stuff in Dragon Plus if you're not already looking at stuff to add to your game. It's a good one.
Danimal,
who's that guy?
Who would you like to have on the show most from the D&D community?
Deborah Ann Wall.
That'd be cool.
But she's a superstar, so I mean that might be a little crazy. Other than that, I would love to be able to sit and talk with Adam Coble.
Yeah.
We got to talk with Matt Colville, and I would love to have Matt back anytime he would love to come back. And I could talk to Matt all day long. But my other hero in role-playing games right now is Adam Coble, and I'd love to have Adam on the show and just be able to do an interview show with them at some point, or anything, just to sit and talk and have a good conversation. He's really cool.
Yeah. Chris Perkins, I would love to have, like Patrick Rothfuss. Actually, the Acquisitions Incorporated people, like it'd be fun to have Mike Krahulik or Jerry Holkins on. Jerry Holkins would be really interesting, because I just feel like he would have a lot of.
You're going for the superstars.
Well, I mean, if you want, like, why not? Like,
yeah.
I mean, I know we're like Jordan's dinky, Jordan and Lucian's little podcast, but it could be a lot of fun. And Anna Prosser, I like her a lot. She was on Dice Camera Action. She's on the new one that they're going to do. She's been in a lot of she plays that Warforged cleric of Lathander. And she plays it so well.
Oh, like, so it's the good. Perfect.
Like, it's hilarious. Like the mentality she has for that character, I think, is just really fun. And I'd like to have her on. I think she's just a really interesting, cool person. Yeah. So yeah,
I can't wait to get more news about their show that they're starting up again, because it's gonna be cool to see Chris Perkins running a game again. It's gonna be cool. I think she's in it, but I don't know. I don't remember all the other players that have been announced. But yeah, I think it'd be cool to see where they're going with this new, or maybe she's in the Acquisitions one. She's been doing a lot of guest appearances all over too. So that's been super cool. So
really fun. And then I think this will be our last question.
Okay.
Jordan's I really have to go to the bathroom, guys. I'm sorry. Yeah. I was like, we could stream longer, but like, I don't know. This is, I
told him, guys, 24-hour stream. He wouldn't do it.
No, yeah.
I'm just saying.
And I like this one because I feel like I have an interesting answer for it. But Skull Dixon again writes, if you were to create a setting, what kind and what would make it different from all the other settings for D&D?
Oh, well, you said you already have an answer for this. So let's hear Jordan's answer while I think up mine at this point.
So I have an idea for a D&D setting that I want to, I want to create it, and then I want to play it with people and build it up with my players. I don't want to just like novel write it all out, but I like the idea. And I always feel like campaign settings, what makes them unique usually is how magic is treated. Like, you can have a low magic, high magic, all this other stuff, but like, how is magic treated in your setting? Because magic in Eberron, really different from the Forgotten Realms. Magic in Dark Sun, very different from other campaigns. And I wanted magic to be warlock focused. So the easiest way to get power is to do it via a warlock. Like, you make a pact with someone, instant power. You lose like maybe your soul, or you lose something in the process, but you have instant power. So I wanted this is, generalization, but my campaign idea is having these floating continents. And maybe, I think there was going to be 6 of them, and it was one for each of the different types of warlocks that you could be. So like the Fiend Warlock has its own floating continent, and the Other World Warlock has its own floating continent, etc. And each of these warlocks are populated by humans that have made a pact with like a super warlock that's kind of the boss of each of these islands, and they control the rest of the world. things like being a cleric, outlawed. Wizards, outlawed. But wizards are needed to craft magical items, so if you are discovered to be a wizard, the warlocks take you and they kind of use your magic to make them magic items and things like that. And so the whole campaign would be, how do we disrupt these warlock overlords? Like, how do we get rid of them somehow? And if you are a cleric, you're hiding your worship. And the gods are trying to influence people on the ground to stop these warlocks so that they can be openly worshipped again, and the gods can get new power. And then I had this whole idea of like the floating continent warlocks are controlling the surface, but underneath the drow are rebelling and they're trying to attack the surface world, not out of evil, malicious intent, but just like they're not allowing us to, they're going to soon come down and not allow us to worship our gods, and we want to stop them. And so you could be a good drow or a good Duergar or something like that. And I like, anyway, that's my campaign idea. And I feel that it's different because, certain types of magic are outlawed, and the taboo in the Forgotten Realms is warlock magic, but here that's normalized. So that's my idea. I've got a couple of maps built, but I
Nice.
like every project, I get really excited and I work on it for a week and then I'm like off to something else. So I need to get back to that, but yeah.
Very nice. So I was just recently listening to Adam Kobil again, and he's always talking about new RPGs, new campaigns, and things like that. And he always says you have to have a mechanic. You have to have some type of thing mechanically that's different besides just, here's my cool lore dump, and my lore is different than this other person's lore, and that's what makes it cool. That's not ever what makes it cool. It's always some mechanical twist. And like you said, twisting magic in some way is a good mechanical twist. So my mechanical twist, and it's not like it hasn't been done before. It has been done before, but the idea that, here's the twist. It is a fantasy world that has many portals and many doorways to other fantasy worlds. When you step through one of those doorways, you flip your character sheet over and you're a different character. And in that world, you are this character. When you come back through the door, then you're back to this other character because you're this other thing. And then when you go through these different doorways or you find these different things, some of them you know about. So you can say, oh, we know what's going to happen there. So maybe you have some control over what you're going to become when you move into that world. But other ones you might go into accidentally and you get some randomly assigned role that whenever you're in this world, you're this half elf something, or you're a drow something, or you're some fantasy coolness creature, you're whatever it might be. And it switches. And the cool mechanic would be is that you have these different character sheets that you're constantly having to switch over back and forth. Or the way they did it in The Strange is they create a sleeve that goes on your main character, and then you fit the sleeve over it so it shows certain things that remain constant. But the things that change is you can put the different sleeves on there, are the things that change depending on what world you go to. And I think that's a cool mechanical idea of this for somebody who loves playing lots of characters and not just sticking to one. It's this idea of this world that supports and embraces the idea that your players are going to get to play lots of different characters that are all tied into one. So that would be my thing that I'd love to build and maybe release in a Kickstarter one day in the future, 10 years from now, 4 years from now, next year, whenever we do it.
Oh, that reminds me, The Nightmares Underneath. Which is an RPG, and also going back to an earlier question, a supplement that I really like, because the Nameless Grimoire has 666 spells in it, and they're easily converted over for Dungeons & Dragons 5e.
Oh, I'm gonna get that.
So
nice.
The Nameless Grimoire, you can get it on Drive-Thru RPG. I really recommend it. The Nightmares Underneath is the RPG that goes along with that spell book, and it is complicated, but the setting is this, you're in this waking world, and then when you go to sleep, you go into this dream world, and that's where the monsters are, and you have to fight nightmares and stuff. So it's kind of like what you're talking. They don't have two character sheets, but I like that idea. I was just thinking that would be a really, so Invisible Sun, there is the Path of the Suns, but the idea of the Invisible Sun is that you awaken from the pale, or not the pale, sorry, the shadow. And the shadow is one of these worlds, and it is our world that we're in right now. And when you awaken from that, you are a Visle, and Visle go to the Indigo Sun, and you have all these magical powers because you're a Visle. What you're describing would be really cool to have like a Visle character sheet on one side and flip it over and have a cipher system, like what is your day job in the real world kind of thing. And so when you go back to Shadow, you would flip it over and you lose your Visle powers because you're in a Shadow world and you have to like figure out something there. And then when you transfer back, you get to be a Visle again. I like that a lot. That's a really cool idea.
Yeah. If you want to see it actually mechanically working, this, Monty Cook and Bruce Cordell, they built The Strange, which is exactly that kind of idea. But theirs is a futuristic take on it, and it has to do with more of a sci-fi world. But I thought it would be a really cool idea also for a fantasy world. And it gives me the opportunity to play lots of different characters in the same campaign, which is perfect for me as a player, and I think is fun as a DM. Not everybody's going to like that kind of thing, but I think there are a lot of people that love having, we went through this doorway, I'm a paladin of this, which is really cool. But then we go through this doorway and I'm more like Conan the Barbarian, and we're in a much lower magic, hardcore fantasy. And then I go through this other doorway, and now it's like Warhammer fantasy battle, and the orcs are 6 foot tall and big and hulking, and we're in this cool, we've got Skaven running around and all this other cool stuff. And in that one, I'm a witch hunter or something, and it's like all these cool different things that are going on. And I think if you had a mechanic that would easily slip over your main, like maybe there's certain things that you keep no matter where you go. Maybe it's your intelligence, maybe it's your 1 or 2 things that go with you everywhere, but then these sleeves slip on to say, okay, now I'm here, I get this sleeve tells me I get this sleeve tells me I get this thing, and you could really play some really cool fun stuff there. So I would love to develop something like that.
It reminds me of the anime .hack,
where
like I'm just saying, like, that would be really cool if you're like, here's my real life persona, and then when I jack into the game, I turn this over, and now I'm this video game character.
Yeah,
but
totally
you could
influenced by that.
You could pull back from the video game character and say, okay, my real life character wants to try and hack this thing, and if you roll really good, you then have advantages for your game character because you hacked the game, so he's able to like jump higher or something. That could be
definitely
like
Sword
how they
Art
could
Online.
Influence each other. That could be a lot of fun.
Sword Art Online would be an influence for me on that. Horizon was another one. That's another kind of anime MMO. There's a lot of them coming out right now. Anime is about people getting trapped in MMOs when they go in from a VR MMO thing. I just watched another one last night that I saw on Hulu, which was really good. And I love that concept of, you get to become somebody else, but you're still this other person, and that all interacts in the game in some way.
Why the hell is there not a Matrix RPG? Like,
right.
That's exactly what that is. So, Anyway.
Yeah, it'd be super cool.
This was fun. Wait. Go ahead.
Even better. It's kids on bikes, but the kids get trapped in a fantasy world. So then it's your other fantasy world, but they get to come back to kids on bikes as their kids. So you're playing a teenager.
Why don't we play kids playing D&D? So we role play the kids on bikes, and then you're playing games, and then all of a sudden there's an earthquake, and you go back to the kids on bikes game, and your little sister has like shook the table because she's angry at you. So then you have to like deal with your little sister. Get out of here. We're playing games. You're 10. You don't understand.
That's right.
And then you go back. All right, dragon.
Yeah, I definitely want to play that game. I want to play that game.
That sounds
Stranger
fun.
Things.
Stranger
the RPG.
Things.
Let's do it.
I love it. Ladies and gentlemen, that is our show. You are beautiful and awesome. We very much love and appreciate you. This was a lot of fun. Thank you again for 100 episodes. We're in our 3rd year of this crazy show, and it's just super cool. This is really awesome.
Yeah.
So,
sorry for any of the hiccups. Yeah. We're still working on some of the technicalities. Yeah. We're going to work through them, but you can go back to Jordan's YouTube if you missed anything there. I'm sure his recording got all of it. And even if the live show cut out here or there, but it's been a fantastic 100 episodes, and I can't wait to see what we do next and where we go next and how we do it. So it's going to be super cool.
It's going to be awesome.
Bringing you guys with us.
Sign up for the giveaway.
Thanks to our sponsor.
Thank you, Dice Dungeons. You are fantastic. Also, subscribe to the channel, share this out with people. It'll be awesome. Or don't, and limit the number of people that are eligible for the prize.
We're just
but hey, like whatever you want to do. But sincerely and honestly, thank you guys. Lucian and I really love doing this. We love that you guys are here watching us every day. We love the podcasters that are listening. So just thank you. And this was a lot of fun. We will see you next week with the winners of our giveaway, as well as more Dungeons and Dragons talk. Until then, anything else before we go, Lucian?
We're all winners, really.
We're all winners.
You know,
You're a winner.
but no, I can't wait for our shows to continue into the new year. 2020 is going to be our best year yet. Thank you guys for coming.
Yep.
Take us away.
Yep. Take care, everybody. We will see you next week with another episode of the Saturday Morning D&D Show.
Bye.
Take care.